Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing Firewatch for the Nintendo Switch. So, in case you didn't get my memo at the beginning of this video, this is an M-rated game, although I decided to play in free roam mode so that if there's, people that aren't mature enough to be watching or reading this, all they're seeing is the scenes of trees, and who gets scared of trees? Anyway, so Firewatch is a very narrative-driven walking simulator of sorts. Basically, you control a forest ranger named Henry, whose job is to sit in a tower and watch for forest fires. Gradually, you'll get more and more requests to do other tasks, like making sure the cables that run for communication are all in place, or checking out some mischief makers and figuring out what they're up to, and then more and more crazy stuff begin happening to Henry the longer he stays at the resort, until eventually it becomes a thriller of sorts. So obviously the biggest draw of this game is, well, at least for me, it's going to be the exploration. You have a humongous forest to explore, and eventually there's even a cave to break up all the lush greenness. And you're given almost unlimited freedom. I say almost because there are some points where you have to do context-sensitive things. Like, for instance, you might need an axe to chop down a tree, or you might need rope to attach to a rock so you don't trip and fall down a steep incline. You also have a map and a compass to prevent you from getting lost. And you have several options of how you want to display the game. Like, if you don't want that annoying cursor that shows up in most of these first-person point-and-click style games, you can turn that off. You can also choose to play with audio commentary, and all of this is available from the beginning. I haven't tried that yet, but I always love it when that's an option. And I'd especially love for them to explain their reasoning, because while this game is very story-heavy, in my opinion it's more so about the journey than the destination. While it is a lot of fun to try to figure out, like, what the heck is going on and where could the story possibly be headed, I personally think the story ended on kind of a, okay, that's it type of note. I wish the ending were a lot more satisfying. It kind of undermines everything you've been through up to that point and sort of ends things on a slight cliffhanger. And it almost makes the opening segment, which will probably remind a lot of people of the movie Up, seem kind of pointless in retrospect. Also, there's not too much that you have to do during this. Most of it is just listening to your companion Delilah blab and sometimes make corny jokes. The voice acting in this game is phenomenal, but I wish there were more people to interact with. You don't really see anyone's faces, like, at all, and you don't really talk to too many other people besides Delilah. Like, yeah, occasionally Henry will get a call from his wife, and there's one scene where you have to deal with a couple of teenage girls causing mischief, but apart from that, it's pretty much just Henry and Delilah the whole time, and sometimes that gets a bit old. Although I couldn't help but feel satisfied at all of this nature-y stuff. It sort of reminds me of my favorite book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and also how much I love hiking, and it reminded me of the wilderness trips my parents and I used to take back when I actually liked family vacations. So, Firewatch is an okay-looking game. I really like how they made a lot of effort into making sure that there's a ton of foliage, that the grass actually moves. The lighting is so dynamic to the point where when it's a certain lighting in the day, it makes it harder to read the map, because that's what it's like in real life. And also the map is deliberately hard to view on purpose, because this takes place in the year 1989, and so they didn't have modern fonts. Although that's a slight contradiction, or maybe just a programming oversight when you're actually reading a letter, because the game will automatically turn on a modern font. Well, modern-ish. I don't know what modern will be considered 20 years after this video comes out, so that you could read the letter legibly in case the person has bad handwriting or something to that degree. The hardest thing about this game for me had to have been the controls. I had a lot of trouble with adjusting to the way the game handles at first, maybe because I'm not used to these first-person style adventures, but it was really hard just to even do the basic things. Like, for example, using your radio, you have to hold down the ZL button to hold the receiver to your ear, then you have to press the R button to select a response, and then you have to let go of the L button to respond. I mean, wouldn't it have just been easier if you could use the control stick to select a response and then just press A? I mean, that's how, like, every other game on a traditional controller would work. I don't see why this game has to be any different. The atmospheric sounds of this game are really incredible. You feel like you're, like, totally in the midst of this wilderness, and the sound, of course, adapts to where you are. So when you're near a lake, you hear the soothing sounds of the water. And when you're in the cave, it sort of goes ambient, and you can hear the echoes of the voice actors. And the music, while the music plays very sporadically, is really well done, capturing the mood and sometimes giving you a little hint like, hey, you're on the right track, because the music has just intensified. And unless I'm reading the names wrong, I believe it was the same composer that did Gone Home, which I didn't really like that game, but I did like the music, so it's good that they got that guy to return. Now, this game is very buggy. At one point, I actually fell through the ground, and the game forced me to redo a scenario that I had already done. A couple of other times, the game will just freeze in place while it waits for the area to load, or while it waits for the time to pass, because this game doesn't have a dynamic changing clock. It's more so the time changes as the story progresses. So don't expect you to be able to sit on a rock and watch the sunset. Sorry, but you'll have to play games like Breath of the Wild if you want that. Also, sometimes you'll have to deal with pop-in, and it's understandable for a game this massive, but it's odd that this is nowhere near as big as, say, Breath of the Wild's or Skyrim's worlds, and yet those games had less bugs than this one. The price for this game is a little bit inflated, in my opinion. I got this for $20 on the eShop, and for such a disappointing ending and so little to do, I think you should probably wait for it to be more like $10 or less, unless you really like the narrative. But let me warn you again, this is an M-rated game. There is a lot of profanity, and a lot of times it's unnecessary. Mostly F-bombs, but occasionally you'll get other words, which I will not mention in case there are innocent ears here. There's also 2 instances of nudity, one where there's an explicit drawing of the male anatomy, and another where there's a scenario where you encounter teenage girls that are skinny dipping. Other than that, no nudity. Most of it is just some sexual innuendos or a lot of peril / suggestive material. So overall, it's a tamer M-rated game, but still not one that I would recommend for the family, at least not without strong parental consent. So with that, this is obviously going to have a very mixed audience reaction, although I believe that if you are younger than an M-rated audience, I think you can still have a lot of fun with this, as you can toggle the free roam like I'm doing right now, and then, like I said, you just wander around the woods at your own pace, and nothing scary will pop out, no crazy jump scares or anything like that. It's all just a nice, peaceful hiking experience. So with that, I don't think this game is terrible, but I definitely think it's a lot more underwhelming than my friend Nick made it out to be. So proceed with cautious optimism, as I always like to word it. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section, and until then, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and let me know if you like hiking or not. Bye!